Hello everyone. Nika here with your daily neuro nugget. Welcome everybody. Make sure that while you are joining us, if you are new to the family, make sure that you're subscribing. Make sure that you are signing up for notifications. Make sure, by the way, that you find me in the description of every single video on my Instagram. And the reason I say that is because I know a lot of you have told me that I'm being censored. I normally don't go back and rewatch my own videos, but a lot of things, when you guys have pointed out to me, I go back and rewatch them, and like the platform is like taking tidbits out of the videos. They are taking comments down. It's really weird. And just remember, guys, these are my theories, my conspiracies, my opinions. These are for entertainment purposes only. This is my disclaimer, right? So take everything you hear on the internet, anywhere, on the news even, with a grain of salt, right? Use your own brain, use your brain cells. They're there for a reason. Please use your brain. Now, let's talk about Mr. Coberger, because whether we like it or not, whether we are happy or unhappy with the current state of affairs regarding Idaho, regarding the Gonsalves, regarding Mr. Coberger and his accepting of the plea deal, it appears to the majority of us that Mr. Coberger is going to be in prison for the rest of his life behind bars, right? That's what it seems like for now, but we are going to talk about this. What is Mr. Brian Coberger gonna look like behind bars? By the way, welcome guys. A lot of you guys asked me, Nika, you don't use the methylene blue anymore. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot I had it in my fridge, so there. And I promise I will get to the chat eventually, right? Now, a lot of people have theorized, Nika, what do you think? Is it possible that Mr. Coberger is going to get Epsteined? Because let's be honest with each other, whether you think Brian Coberger is guilty or innocent, or whether you think maybe he unalived everybody, or maybe he happened to be at 1122 King Road on November 13th, maybe doing something else directly or indirectly tied to the crime, we can all agree that this case has been nothing but suspicious, weird, and inconsistent since the very beginning. Right now, we know that Mr. Coberger is most likely going to a Gen Pop prison after being in solitary confinement for over 2.5 years, which alone is suspicious. And I have mentioned this before, right? 2.5 years alone in solitary confinement is suspicious, because when you Google, when you use AI, when you chat GPT, Idaho has a 15-day limit on consecutive solitary confinement. And it's supposed to be utilized for disciplinary purposes only, and no more than 20 days within a 60-day period. And when it's for admin issues like high-risk inmates or protective custody, the average stay can range from 110 to 160 days. So that is a lot more than 2.5 years. And the majority of people that I talked to regarding the IDAHO4 haven't even bothered to look up the regulations regarding solitary confinement in Idaho. So has Mr. Coberger actually been in solitary confinement for 2.5 years? Now, I personally would like to touch on some theories regarding Steve Gonsalves, because again, he has, in my opinion, very powerful contacts in prison, right? I mean, Steve himself has allegedly alluded to the fact that he could probably have Mr. Coberger taken care of. First of all, I thought that was a very idiotic comment to make on live television, Mr. G. At the same time, I do understand his frustration, right, as a parent, with the court system, with everything that is taking place. But still, right? And allegedly, Steve Gonsalves has a brother in prison, right? Nathan Gonsalves, who is there for unaliving somebody. So what kind of ties, what kind of deep, dark, sinister, wicked relationships does Mr. Steve Gonsalves know in jail, right? Now, there is another theory that Mr. Coberger is going to be taking advantage in jail, in prison. We know that he is autistic. We know that he is OCD. We know he has anxiety, according to the neuropsych evaluations that were released with all the legal documents, right? People like that are statistically very bad at reading body language, have a hard time making friends, have a hard time holding relationships in the real world. Imagine in prison. It would make it very difficult, right? And on top of that, he's vegan. He's vegan, so, okay, yeah, he might get a piece of tofu, he might get some beans, but is it possible that people are also going to be taking advantage of Mr. Coberger, right? He's this relatively young man with autism, with anxiety, with OCD. It's like the perfect bully. And statistically speaking, people with autism are bullied way more than people that are neurodivergent are bullied way more than a neurotypical person, right? I think it was like 8 times more statistically speaking. Now, another theory is that he is going to take advantage of the systems in place and life behind bars. As some people have said, he has nothing to lose. Like, he has a life sentence, might as well write a book, might as well get some notoriety, might as well get famous, might as well tell your story, might as well use what is taking place to your advantage. Again, these are all theories, right? From other people. People have also mentioned that, look, the way Coberger looks, like, just his look, the way he carries himself, his demeanor, convicts are probably going to destroy him because, first of all, this is somebody who is accused of unaliving young, relatively attractive people, but I'm not so sure about that. I'm not so sure that everybody in jail is just gonna come right after him and attack him, because if we've been paying attention to the type of people that get incarcerated, there's a lot of people that have gone to prison for hurting minors, hurting children, whatever else, horrible crimes. Like, we have other examples. For example, we have Chris Watts. Okay, Chris Watts, who unalived his own pregnant wife and unalived his grade school daughters, right? Grade school age daughters. And how is he doing in prison? He seems to be doing perfectly fine to me, right? And there are another group of people that have speculated that everybody's wrong. Like, he's not going to get Epstein. He's not going to, write books on how he committed the crime. But because Mr. Coberger wanted to be an Army Ranger and was doing a PhD in criminal psychology, and his own professor, we've heard his own professor say that people with these degrees usually go to work where? They usually go to work for the feds or law enforcement, right? So people have speculated that it's a possibility that Mr. Coberger has been recruited into ISA, which is Intelligence Support Activity, which is kind of comparable to SEAL Team 6, right? And a lot of people pointed out that in the last hearing, Mr. Coberger looked a lot different. And I had honestly not paid that much close attention until you guys reached out to me on Instagram and you let me know, Nika, does Mr. Coberger look way more muscular to you? Does Mr. Coberger now have an amazing haircut? And why does Mr. Coberger suddenly appear so tan? And the closer I look, I'm like, for me, it's very difficult to see the difference. And in previous footage that we've seen of Mr. Coberger, the cameras were way worse. So it's hard for me to tell because you guys always tell me I look so different, depending on where I'm sitting in my room, depending on the natural lighting entering or whatever. But I do agree with some people that he does look like he's kind of put on some healthy weight compared to his previous images. he had a great haircut, and I do agree that he does look a little bit more tan. Of course, is it the lighting? I don't know. But it does look a lot different than his previous pale complexion, right? And people have said, well, there is no way that there is any truth to this. We know that this, for some people, is a very far-fetched speculation. Some people are very close-minded, and that's okay. But they've said the fact no way in hell could Mr. Coberger be a Fed, right? Or be part of any intelligence agency, right? Now, there's also the theory that Brian Coberger pled guilty to avoid the death penalty. But they mentioned that Brian Coberger would have been an OAP regardless of what he decided because he's a Fed. So let me know in the chat, let me know in the comments. If you're here and you're part of the replay crew, let me know what you think. Because again, I'm here to kind of get the truth out, but also I want to get your guys' point of view, right? Because it matters to me. And yet others have mentioned that Gen Pop is actually a bunch of sick, twisted individuals that are going to put Brian Coberger on a pedestal as he's accused of taking 4 people out in just a few minutes, right? Are they going to see him as an alpha? Are they going to be impressed with the crime or with whatever he's accused of doing, right? And looking back, I do wonder, because there have been so many lies in this case, that this is why a lot of us have trust issues with law enforcement. Not all of law enforcement, not everybody in law enforcement is bad, but when they have lied to us consistently, when we hear Bill Thompson in this last hearing still lying to us, lying through his big old teeth, saying that the roommates were asleep. Sir, they were not asleep. They were not asleep. Stop lying to us. We know the truth already. Those women were not asleep. And they were telling us in the early days that Mr. Coberger was in solitary confinement. But again, when we look up the regulations of solitary confinement per Idaho, right? They can't do that. Like, there's a max, and if you missed it, I said at the beginning of the video, so you're gonna have to wait and rewind, right? But we've all seen Richard Allen, right? I told you guys I lived in Delphi, and I've been also keeping very close track of that case. But what did solitary do for Richard Allen? It effed him up bad. Because why? Because it's inhumane and it leads to people losing their mind. Okay, that's why there are stringent, strict laws in place to keep law enforcement, to keep the government from locking people away for so long in solitary confinement, unless there's a very specific reason. And again, in the position that Mr. Brian Coberger is in, there's no reason that he should have been in solitary confinement. And on top of that, Richard Allen was in solitary confinement for what, a year? And lost his freaking mind. And allegedly, Mr. Coberger was in solitary confinement for 2.5 years. And the man looks perfectly sane. And a lot of people who do not understand psychology are going to say, well, he looks perfectly sane because he's antisocial, because he has trouble socializing, because he has anxiety, because he's autistic. But actually, people who are neurodivergent and on the spectrum need to socialize just as neurotypical people do, right? People who are neurodivergent are just as likely to lose their mind in solitary confinement. Now, we have Brian Coberger allegedly with a tan, with a new haircut, and then there's a fireman doppelganger that looks kind of like BK. I talked about this three or so lives ago. Please go watch that live from beginning to end. It's just all really, really odd. And allegedly then that fireman doppelganger ends up getting deleted off the planet by some psycho guy. It's all really strange. And then there is an even crazier theory, right? And that is that Mr. Brian Coberger is actually going to end up at the state hospital working with the state of Idaho, maybe. I don't know about that, but he could potentially end up at the state hospital, especially because he has those very specific diagnoses. They could work to ameliorate his his jail sentence, his prison sentence, right? Instead of him being in a prison, they might say that's too overwhelming for somebody with autism. So let's have him maybe at a psychiatric state hospital. But if he is potentially undercover, there have been cases, guys, and I know this sounds insane, but there have actually been cases of people that pretend, like in the 50s, it was very, very common, pretend to have all these health issues, and then they go work undercover in state hospitals just to see what it's like, right? And usually it's part of a PhD in psychology. So please make sure to vote in the chat. If you are part of the replay crew, please make sure to vote in the comments. This is it, guys. Get ready to vote, right? Some people have said, if you think that Mr. Coberger is gonna get what Jeffrey Dahmer got on cleaning duty, and I know you know what that is, babe, please leave a 1. If you think that Mr. Coberger is going to be in isolation or protective custody, please leave a 2. And if you think that he is an undercover federal agent, please leave a 3. By the way, a lot of you guys have asked me, because I do have a military background, a lot of you have asked me on Instagram to talk about my military background. I don't think it really pertains to this channel, and a lot of you have asked me if I'm undercover, and I'm gonna tell you straight up, no sir. I am no longer part of any military or 3-letter agency or whatever. So you don't have to worry, right? I just think it's funny that people ask those questions, but I guess I kind of get it. And now I'm gonna pull up the chat and talk to you guys for a little bit before I have to head out. Methylene blue, don't drink it. Don't do what I do. Who's in? Oofy? Hello, hi hoppers. Hello, Carol. Hi, open your peepers. Hello, Stone. Hi, Joey. BK is innocent, says Joey. Stone, it's a goddamn outrage. Joey says, Brian Coberger innocent, he was framed. Crime Spy 2024, free Brian, not guilty. Crime Spy 2024, beautiful Nika, thank you so much. Marshall says hello, welcome. Juniper Rob, hey, do you think this is a possibility? When the alternate suspects came into play, did Brian's family get a threat saying that if Brian named names, then they would all be unalived? I mean, the way this case has been handled, this is why this case drew me to make what is this, my 4th YouTube channel or something? Because it doesn't make any sense, right? And I feel like almost anything is possible. That's what makes this case so interesting. Stone says he was in solitary confinement for 2.5 years. It's gotta be torture. That's cruel, just punishment. But was he really? You know, part of me doesn't believe that he was actually in solitary confinement because he's not showing any of the signs. And you would see those signs sometimes within a week, that quickly, right? Within a year, we would most definitely be seeing deterioration, mental, physical deterioration, and Mr. Coberger has not. So I'm just wondering, are they lying to us about that as well, right? Hello, SC. Hi, Nika. Sorry I'm late. You look beautiful. That color looks nice on you. Thank you so much. Misinformation, you look nice and green. Thank you. Linda says, right about. Steve Gonzalez wants to take care of BK. His bro's in prison, so he probably has bad connections. And we know some of the connections are the Aryans, right? Jesse James Bailey and you know, does he have ties to the Aryans? Will Mr. Coberger get recruited by some prison gang? Because from what I've heard, from what I've studied, from what you guys have told me, it's like when you are in prison, you cannot really be a lone wolf. You have to pick a side. Pick a side. Rex, love you, and Emerald, thank you so much. BK did boxing or kickboxing. He could totally fight in prison. Yeah, I mean, if you're fighting one person, but we've seen what happens in prison as well, right? Like they will, like a group, a gang of people will like bash one, like they'll attack one. It's not going to be a one-on-one necessarily. Chris says he won't be well received in Gen Pop, right? And that's if he ends up in Gen Pop. Again, the possibilities of him ending in a state hospital due to his diagnoses could work to his advantage. So, you says, didn't he say yes? I did not hear guilty or not guilty, but I may be mistaken. Right, exactly. Without trust, there's no connection. Ooh. Daniel says, or sorry, Stone says, seems like anything is possible except justice in this case, right? Gary, exactly. For somebody in solitary confinement, BK sure has a good tan. It makes you wonder. And we haven't seen any, his body, like he's not like falling apart. He's not breaking down. Like if anything, he looks again like he has put on some healthy muscle mass, some weight compared to previous times that we've seen him. So was he actually in solitary confinement? And when we track back 3 years ago almost to this case, what did we learn, guys? We learned that almost every victim in that home has ties to gangsters, right? Like their parents, through their parents or whatever. A lot of parents had ties to people who were trafficking horrible things, people, substances, whatever. A lot of people had charges. One of the parents of one of the victims even had Ann Taylor as a lawyer, right? So from my understanding, from my previous experience in the military, from my previous experience of having family members who work in the DEA, when you are looking for the top dog, when you're looking for the guy at the top of the food chain, you might just throw them a piece of meat, right? You might just have, for example, a federal agent who is undercover and just say, yeah, sure, yeah, I did it, I'm guilty, because maybe they have work to do, right? Because maybe somebody will pretend to be guilty so that the FBI or the DEA or whoever can continue their investigations. And I've talked about Sheriff Judd, I think is his name, in Florida before, who arrested over 150 people that were trafficking children and illicit substances as well. And that investigation, according to Sheriff Judd, took over 3 years. So it takes a lot of resources. It takes a lot of people cooperating. And sometimes that includes, even though it sounds a little bit far-fetched, people that work within these agencies pretending to be somebody they are not, right? Stone says, Brian did not look tan whatsoever, sorry. I've seen people put pictures next to the before and after, like, you know, his last hearing compared to previous ones. He has some color in my opinion, but again, it's hard to know if it's an actual tan or if it's just better cameras. Lighting always makes a massive difference. Even people here always tell me that my eyes change colors. My eyes don't change colors, babe. It's the lighting, right? Nika, sometimes your eyes look blue, sometimes they look green. It's like, I don't know. What color do they look like today? It's hard to take anything at face value, says Daniel, right? Richard Allen looked like a POW, exactly, but we haven't seen that shift in Mr. Coberger, have we? Derby Kitty, hello. Derby Kitty says, BK looked well rested, tan, nice haircut, good spirits. Not typical of someone in solitary confinement, right? Stone says they put methylene blue in aquariums. They sure do, and we also utilize it as lab scientists. If I do not trust my husband, the marriage is over. No connection if trust is broken. I do not trust law enforcement. Ooh. And they kind of did this to themselves, right? Teresa says there's something very suspicious about all of it. So yes, guys, make sure to vote. Make sure to leave a comment in the comment section. And again, for those of you who are just coming in here, let me know if you think that Mr. Coberger is going to get what Jeffrey Dahmer got on cleaning duty, which is basically get unalived while in Gen Pop prison. Please leave a 1. If you think he's going to be in isolation or protective custody, maybe even end up in a psychiatric state hospital, please leave a 2. And if you think he's potentially an undercover Fed, leave a 3. Seems that anything is possible, right? But thank you guys for joining me in today's live. Make sure that you find me on my Instagram. It is in the description. A lot of you guys have asked me to please check my inbox. I don't have an inbox anymore for this channel. So if you guys want me to talk about whatever topic in this channel, I will, but address it through my Instagram. That being said, I've had over 50 people specifically request for me to make more videos about Noah Pressgrove. You guys know I talked about Noah Pressgrove, another horrific case, a beautiful young man who was taken, right? And now here we are 2.5 years later. The parents are about to sue the police department. And I promise that video is coming, but time is running out. So we'll see you guys soon. Take care, guys.